Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the 6th day of June, 2023, Tuesday of the 9th week of the year, the 9th week at Ordinary Time. Coming to you still from Siena College. This is day 3 of our chapter, the first part, because the chapter's in 2 parts, so this is the first part of it, as we talk about the legacy of Holy Name Province, getting ready for the major chapter that will happen in Kansas City in October. This morning, walking down what's known as Thompson Trail, and Thompson Trail named for Del Thompson, one of the great development directors here at Siena, passed on to God, but not before giving some money to help cultivate and to preserve these wetlands here that are a part of the campus of Siena College. So remember, at St. Francis, we have our own wetlands, which are a tad bit smaller than these. But again, in Franciscan ideal and Franciscan practice here at Siena College, again, we preserve the goodness of the earth. We preserve the bounty of the earth. And so this lovely little walk, which in the heat of the summertime is probably filled with mosquitoes and all kinds of bugs, but now it's not so bad. The weather isn't too bad, so it's kind of nice. So on this Tuesday of the 9th week of the year, the 9th week in Ordinary Time, the saga of Tobit continues, and which, again, we come into this great episode. Again, you know, Tobit, it's a wisdom literature. He's not a prophet, but it's a person. It's a way of looking at how an individual trusts in God and how God can intervene in a person's life, to help make amends and to help cure what's gone wrong, and basically help to straighten out things that their own righteousness have caused to go awry or astray, not because their righteousness was wrong, but because their righteousness was not received well by others. So it's an interesting kind of concept. Job is another one of these wisdom literature books that tries to show us how God intervenes in the difficult times of our lives. So Tobit yesterday was having an issue, having buried somebody who he shouldn't have buried, a Jew who was murdered, again, against the laws of the Assyrians. You don't do that because they're not happy with the Jews, and so it gets him to some kind of trouble, but he does it anyway, and then he goes to sleep outside, and I guess above his the place where he's sleeping outside, because it's hot, there are some birds whose poop falls in his eyes, and again causing him cataracts and blindness. I guess that could happen. I've never looked it up medically, but I guess it does. And there's all kinds of great affliction now that's happening because Tobit, the head of the household, is now blinded, and the treatments aren't helping, and he's upset, and everyone's upset, and everything else like that. But he's getting help, and these kinds of things like that. And one of the things that is given to him as for help is that a goat is given to them, given to the family to be able to prepare for dinner. And Tobit immediately thinks, again, his wife receives it, and Tobit immediately thinks that the goat was stolen and it's stolen property, and they shouldn't eat it, and give it back. And he gets angry at his wife, and his wife basically goes back to him and says, it's an act of charity. You were all about charity, and now where is your charity, you stupid jerk? Because that's what Tobit is. He's being a jerk. He's being an idiot. And it's wonderful in Scripture sometimes where, again, all these righteous people can also be a bunch of jerks, and that's the thing, kind of to recognize, within ourselves and our own humanity, is that our jerkiness gets in the way sometimes of our recognizing the wonder and the glory of God's goodness, whether it be through God in God's own self or whether it through be the actions of others. And so, again, as the saga continues, does Tobit get over his idiocy and the fact that he's mad at his wife for receiving a gift from others, and he begins basically to, kind of correct his attitude, correct his behavior within that. And we'll see what happens. The gospel from Mark is sorry, I almost forgot. It's the gospel about the census tax, and to whom should the census tax be paid? Again, the Pharisees and the scribes trying to trap Jesus and trying to make him look like either a radical rebel who's against Roman governance, or somebody who is caving into Roman governance and thereby not a good Jew. And basically Jesus' response is the classic response of whose image is on the coin. It is Caesar's. Well, the coin belongs to Caesar. And stop trying to trap me, but give to God what is God, which is God's own, which is basically listening to me. Stop trying to find, ways to trip me up. Stop trying to find ways, to make me look like a fool, because I am not not giving you anything that is foolish. I'm giving you something that's going to help you to see yourselves better and to understand yourselves better, not only as good and faithful Jews, but also as good and contributing human beings. So again, this whole idea sometimes we want to we don't believe enough, again, in God's own goodness for us. We don't believe enough in God's own care for us to show us the more, and to perhaps that more be shown to us through the actions of others. And so we want to, in some ways, deflect it, or we want to, some ways, make sure it doesn't exist, or try to downplay it or something like that. But that works to our own ruin. And it works to us losing out on what is before us. Again, this is what's happening with the scribes and Pharisees always in Scripture. They refuse to see wonder and beauty in their midst, and they try to push it away, try to seclude it. And it's not possible to do that. It still exists, it still flourishes, it still shines. And their own smallness of heart and smallness of ability to be able to see it is what causes them to lose out. A glorious continued day for St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.